and welcome to episode number 3 of our video series, How I Got Started. And as you know, this is a show where we capture and talk to different entrepreneurs and business owners about how they started their business and ask them the questions of how they came up with the idea for the business and how they worked it through to actually start that. And on today's episode, we have the chance to talk to wonderful entrepreneur Scott Hepburn of Media Emerging. Scott, thank you for being with us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me in.
And as you guys know, we got a whole list of questions to ask him, so we're going to dive right into that. Now, Scott, here's how we like to start every story. We want to know, how did you come up with the idea for your business? Where did this come from? Where did the motivation come from?
Oh, my goodness. So I'm in public relations, so I'm debating whether I should tell you the PR spin version or the true story. I had actually been working in an agency as a copywriter when I started getting into blogging, and then eventually that became social media when Facebook and Twitter came along. So I was kind of out in front in terms of learning about these technologies and how you could use them for business and for marketing. And back in, 2009, I actually did end up losing my job at the agency I was working for. And so this was a great lesson in networking, right? Is that we always talk about build your network before you need it. And that's exactly what I had been doing. I started my blog not to become a business owner, but simply to learn about the medium and to start making connections with people. As it turned out, when I did lose my job, sort of unexpectedly, I had a network built up that was there for me. And I owe a lot of credit to Eric Hansen, who's a PR man out in Minnesota, who, when I lost my job, he launched a tweet-a-thon on my behalf and helped generate job openings, job leads, consulting opportunities, and next thing you know, I had consulting requests pouring in. So, really, it just goes back to what we always say in social media and social networking. Get out there before you need help, building connections, building your network, helping other people, so that when your time of need comes, you've got an army of people who can help you launch your business or get a job.
Now let me ask you then. So when you were let go and you saw these opportunities, I guess we would kind of call that day one of Media Emerging. Maybe you already doing some of that. Were you concerned? I mean, were you scared that this wasn't really going to happen? Were you just thinking, maybe I just use this long enough to find another job? Or when did you get over, I guess, the fear that we talk about a lot of starting the business and know I was going to keep doing this?
Oh, it scared the crap out of me. I had no desire ever to be an entrepreneur. That was not in my plans. If anything, I started my blog and started learning about that in hopes that I might be able to get a job from somebody else one day. But what shocked me really was day one, I was scared. Day two, I was confident because of everything I had been learning online, all the connections I had been making. I said, you know what? I can do this. I didn't have a business plan. That was a little scary, and I had just come through a divorce, but you know what? This was an opportunity, and there are great people in my network, great people I can count on, and they gave me some tips, some pointers. Ginny Dietrich out in Chicago was one. She took an hour out of her day. She's the CEO of Armand Dietrich. Took an hour out of her day to tell me what I needed to be looking out for as I started my business and hung my shingle. And that phone call gave me all the confidence in the world.
Now we've heard about this a bit from some of the other entrepreneurs that we interviewed. So it sounds like in a way you had mentors that were helping you understand what it was going to take to get your business out there and some of the first things you should do. You already mentioned part of your career being in PR, that you were doing the networking, but how did you go out and find these people? Were these people you already knew from when you were working with the agency? Or what were you doing to kind of build that network that you then could rely on once you did have to find another means of work, which launched Media Emerging?
Yeah, sure. Well, mentoring, absolutely. Having a mentor to help you grow your business, invaluable. No question about it. For me, it all went back to what I started doing with my blog. Shortly after I learned how to write a post and publish it, I learned that the key to success as a blogger and in social networking was in helping other people. So before you go asking somebody else to help you, what are you doing to help them? It might be retweeting their articles or sharing links to something they've written. It might be helping them draw traffic back to their site. It might be helping them with an event or volunteering in some way, or making a referral for them or giving them a testimonial. Being able to help others. That was the credibility that I brought to the social networking space that made others more interested in helping me. And I'm grateful to them for that. Before I launched my business, I was really just a blogger. I had a blog, and when Twitter came along, I got on there, and I used those tools to meet new people and to learn what was interesting to them. What were they talking about? What were they trying to accomplish? How could I help them? I knew that if I were seeking a job, that the ability to help other people would increase the likelihood that they would grant me an interview or refer me to somebody who could hire me. So I was just always looking for opportunities to help other people. From there, I started to narrow it down a little bit and say, okay, in addition to just helping people every chance I got, how could I find people who needed my particular skills, and how could I use my particular skills to help others? And from there, I found that my most valuable way of helping people was to play the role of connector. I wasn't always the answer, but I knew somebody in my network who was. So if you needed a plumber, I knew a plumber. If you needed somebody to help you with video, I could point you to somebody who could do that. If you needed help with your accounting or HR or legal, I had contacts in my network, and I referred those folks over. So I helped, I helped two people at once grow their business.
And that makes me kind of think, because you talked about the skills that you already had, and who could use that, what businesses could use that. How did you decide what services you were going to offer in the beginning? How did you decide Media Merging does this and offers this?
Well, my background was in writing. I started out as a newspaper journalist and then got into copywriting, so helping businesses, mostly small businesses, write their stories, tell their stories, mostly in print at the time, but also websites, brochures, flyers, press releases, that sort of thing. And so that's where I started. But I also learned that blogging was changing the way small businesses, especially, but all businesses, were marketing themselves. We no longer had to go to the big newspapers or the big TV stations and pay an awful lot of money to advertise there, or beg and beg and beg for publicity. You could start a website with a blog and tell your own story. The trouble was most businesses didn't have the foggiest clue how to do that, or what it even meant, or a lot of times it wasn't even on their radar. When I came along, I wasn't necessarily an expert in that field. I just happened to recognize it and the opportunity that it presented sooner than others. And so I was able to go to businesses and say, look, here's what I think that this could do for you. I know a little bit about it. Would you be willing to let me help you through it? And so I started helping businesses launch blogs, set up Twitter presence, set up a Facebook page, start to connect with their customers online without having to go through traditional advertising channels.
Now, what year did you start Media Merging?
I started the blog in 2007, maybe 2008. I started the company in 2009.
So we would say about 2 years ago, really pushing out to businesses, offering what you're mentioning in terms of blogging, social media, what is also new platforms, new avenues, you said non-traditional ways to get their marketing out there. So I'm assuming for some of these small businesses, that was difficult. These are things they did not understand really what they were, how to use them, how to leverage them. Did you run into challenges working with clients, or even finding some clients that were willing to give you the chance because they didn't understand the services you offered?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest challenge is, when you're talking with a business that has a limited marketing budget to begin with, and they're nervous about where to spend that money. It never goes far enough, right? Should I be spending it on advertising, public relations, email marketing, search engine optimization? And now here comes this thing called social media. One more place for me to spend my money, but I don't know if it works. Everybody was hearing a lot. They were seeing the headlines, social media, it's the big new thing. This is where you need to put your marketing dollars. But people were a little unsure. Was this a smart way to invest my money? And what if it wasn't? What if it turned out to be a big waste? Then I've just blown through my entire marketing budget, and oh shoot, now what? How am I going to stay alive? So, yeah, I mean, there were some objections, there were some concerns, and as more and more businesses got into it, and especially big businesses started doing it, smaller businesses said, if it's good enough for Coca-Cola, if it's good enough for Best Buy, maybe I should be trying that. So mid-sized and small business owners got into it. And then the next phase after that was after they got set up using social media and started to understand it, now what? What's the plan? What's the strategy here? How do I make this stuff actually work for me? How can I be successful with it? And that's where even today businesses still struggle with that.
And so is this something, when we talk about the initial challenges you have or even objections to the methods because they don't understand the methods? And it sounds like even just hearing you, there was a lot of upfront education that you had to do to help the customer know, here's why we're doing this, or here's why I recommend you do XYZ on Facebook, XYZ on Twitter to help promote your products, promote your service, promote your brand. Now, how was it after you got your, let's say, your first client? What was it like getting the first client, and kind of describe to us what was that first project like working with them?
Yeah, well, my first couple of clients came from other marketers, other marketing and public relations professionals that I had come to know. Some of them I met through Twitter and through blogging, but some of them were friends, and they called me in and said, you know what, this guy knows his stuff, and let's see if he can help their client. So I would actually be pulled in and serve somebody else's client. And after a while, I started to attract my own clients. I think that the biggest challenge came after my name started getting out there and more businesses started calling me in and asking for help with social. I would go in and realize that there are an awful lot of businesses, small businesses, even larger businesses that are doing marketing as best they can, as best they know how, but realize too that they are woefully under-equipped, under-resourced, under-knowledgeable about this stuff. They're hanging on by the skin of their teeth when it comes to understanding marketing. A lot of them, you would sit down and you would say, okay, tell me about your marketing goals. Tell me about your business goals. We want to make more sales. Well, okay, what else? And that's where we get stuck a lot of times. So I realized that I could offer some additional help by helping them understand what it was they wanted to accomplish and what was the right way to get there.
So we talk about a bit in the other entrepreneurs that we interview, and we always like to know how this happens. In your case, and what I'm talking about is actually expounding your services or your products or looking for other opportunities. So you're engaged with businesses up to a point where you're talking about here's the how-to and here's how we're going to do it. And then you saw the opportunity in the strategy behind why you do it and what's the goals behind it. Now, how did you turn that into, or did you turn that into an additional service that you offered in conjunction with managing or doing the social media? Or did this all just kind of come out of different situations with customers that you decided, hey, maybe if I just kind of add this as something additional, it's another revenue stream? How'd you kind of decide what was the boundaries of what you were going to offer as you kept growing Media Emerging?
Well, I still don't have the very best answer to that question because my approach is to understand what it is the customer is trying to accomplish and what it is the customer is struggling with, and then come up with a solution tailored to that, which, if you think about it, I mean, that's how we used to do business years and years ago. It was, okay, I have this product or service. I think it would be good for you. Here's why it's a great product. But tell me a little bit more about you. Do you think this is a product that you need? And if it's not, could I change it in some way? How could I change my product to make it more of something that would be useful to you? And then the mass production era came along. The Henry Ford era, where business really grew and this country really grew, and we kind of got away from that much more personalized, customized approach to providing products and services. So my approach is, it's a little bit going back to the way it used to be, of understanding what it is that my target audience, my market needs, and then finding a solution based on that. And the trouble with that is that there's never really a boundary. If I box myself into a boundary and say this is all that I do, I run the risk of trying to cram my solution down the throat of a customer that it might not be the best fit for, instead of trying to find a solution based on what the customer needs.
Now that's going to lead me to the next question, which is going to make this interesting. So we've gotten to how you started Media Emerging. We've gotten to your initial services that you offer and described how those services grew. But it sounds like in a way it's dynamic and custom per customer project. Therefore, how do you put a price tag on that? I mean, the question that all business owners seem to struggle with when we start is, what do I charge? What is this going to cost? And without having boundaries, it sounds like that could be a little bit difficult. Now, we don't ask you to give your exact pricing. We don't want you to, I'm sure some of our viewers would want you to say exactly how you do it if they're going to compete with you. But really, how do you kind of come up with how you're going to price your projects since your services are so dynamic?
Well, actually, I take two approaches. Yes, most of the products and services I offer are custom prices, custom quote. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Here's how I can help you. And I try to come up with what that would cost. And basically what I do is I say, look, how much money would I like to make? How much income do I need personally? And what do I need to do to get there? Well, if I can build, let's say 1,000 hours this year, what rate would I need to charge on an hourly basis to get to that income goal? So that's how I started to determine ballpark what is my hourly rate if I were to charge on an hourly basis. And then I sort of use that as a benchmark, I guess, to figure out on a per project basis. I do have some things that are set rates. I mean, I do trainings and classes and stuff, and we'll come up with just a cost to attend a class. The other thing I do is, I try and understand what the client's budget is. Realistically, how much do you have to work with? What is it you're trying to accomplish? And is that budget adequate to achieve what you want to do? If it's not, I'll be honest with you about that. If your budget is too small, and if I'm not going to be able to help you based on that small budget, I'll be honest with you about that, and I'll recommend some other options for you. It's not easy. Finding the right price. We go back and forth, and my goal is to try and find a price that is fair to a client and allows me to achieve my business goals and personal goals.
Now I want to get into this a little bit because that was good information. And what really pinged out to me, and you're the first entrepreneur that we've interviewed to talk about this, is how do you handle when you actually need to turn down business? You mentioned when their budget is just not what it needs to be valuable for A, them to want to accomplish what they want to accomplish, but B, to hire you to do it. It's not something they can afford. Now, you just mentioned a little bit, you'll come up with other options and things like that for them, but how do you handle turning down a sale?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of ways and a couple of criteria, I guess, I use for turning down a sale. One is if it's not a good fit, I guess you could call it culturally. If I don't like your business, I don't like you, and I just don't feel that it would be a healthy relationship, I'm going to turn that down, and I'm going to be polite and courteous in doing so, and maybe refer you to somebody else who might be a better fit for you. The other way is if I am not the best solution for you. For instance, if somebody came to me and needed videos produced, and that was an important piece of their marketing plan, I would say, you know what, I'm probably not the best person to create those videos. I can give you some ideas in terms of what types of videos you should create, what types of content your potential audience needs to meet their information needs. But if you need somebody to help you create those videos, here are some folks who'd be a better fit for you based on their abilities. And then there are times when sometimes it's just budget. I remember when I was first getting started, there was a small business owner, a woman who had an idea for a product. And it was a great idea, but she was trying to create this product out of her kitchen and build a business that way. And I love that. I admire that. That's how so many small businesses get started. But her budget was $50 a month, $100 a month, maybe. There's just not much I'm going to be able to do. So, I could steer her to some resources where she could learn on her own how to help market her own business.
Now, it sounds like this is the case, so I just want to kind of confirm it because I think it's very useful, especially for other entrepreneurs, business owners who start a service-based business where they may have to turn down clients in different projects. you put a big focus on how you leave that potential engagement, that prospect, even though it's not going to work out, by directing them to other resources. So, do you make it a case to really know what else is out there, know who else is out there in order to connect with them and redirect these people to other resources?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You know, I think that honestly is one of the strengths of my business. I grow my business by knowing who else out there provides services that I cannot provide, and by being able to identify people who do good work, fair work, honest work, high quality work, and to be able to refer you to those folks. First of all, I'm helping your business by sending you to somebody who can do a better job than I can. Second of all, I'm helping that service provider and I'm building a relationship with them in the process so that when somebody comes to them and says, I need help growing my business, do you know anybody who can help me with public relations? They think, oh, Scott Hepburn. He's sent me a lot of business in the past. He's a great guy. He does good work. And they refer the business back to me. Hey, business owners, we got to stick together. We got to help each other. Lord knows there's enough challenges out there. Find other people in related fields or in different industries that you can work with and help grow each other's business.
So it sounds like it goes a lot back to the, give and down the road, give down the road you're going to receive. Because, I know you and as you're describing it, you're not self-serving in the fact that you're pushing potential business some other business owner's way. You're really trying to do what's in the best interest for all parties. But in a way that comes back around to you when those people need to send business somewhere else and they think of you. So you found that to be a great strategy to even help in new business development as the connections you make with who might actually be competitors.
Right. Yeah, and it's just one strategy, and it's not to say that it's the best strategy, and it's not to say that it's the only strategy you can or should employ at one time. At some point, I've got to sell. I've got to turn and say, this is what I do, this is how I can help you. Here's what it would cost. I think it's the right move for you. What do you say we get started? If I don't do that, if I don't close the sale, I don't eat. Sometimes you need other strategies. But for me, the karma approach has worked. I've built my reputation on helping others, on having expertise in my field, having a strong network, good knowledge about my industry and about best practices. I don't have to do a lot of marketing myself. I've got an army of people out there who will market for me because I've helped market them.
Now, tell us a little bit about that. That's going to be my next question is, well, you talk a lot about to really get to where the dollars are coming in, obviously we have to sell something as business owners, but how are you promoting your business in order to get the opportunities to make the sale? What methods are you using?
Sure. Well, the first thing I do is I send Brian Hamlet a cake every month so that he'll bring me on the show.
It's fantastic, by the way.
And you can buy that cake yourself at Cupcraze Bakery. No, what I do is I do the same thing that I encourage my clients to do, which is a lot of my clients anyway, is that I share expertise in my field in the form of content via the means at my disposal. So it might be an email, might be an article I share on Twitter or LinkedIn. It might be a blog post I wrote, and I use those tools as sort of my, I guess you could call it a backstage pass into conversations with others. Hey, here's an interesting article about what's new in blogger relations and blogger outreach. That starts a conversation with somebody and gives me an opportunity to talk a little bit more about what I do. Next thing you know, I've got a business lead.
Now, you mentioned about the blog being one of your main way, and obviously, as you just said, content being one of the main ways to promote your business. And a lot of business owners who've heard the whole concept of blogging and get quality content out there and get it consistently, but what they struggle with is getting that first audience. Is there something that you needed to do? Because this is specific for what your business does. Is there something that you did either strategy-wise or technique-wise that really helped build that initial audience that kept growing as you kept producing content?
Sure. Well, and I can't give away too much of my trade secret because
oh, why not? Come on.
Well, this is what I advise clients on. But, there are some basic pointers. One thing to keep in mind as you're building a social media presence is that to a certain extent, with your Facebook page or your Twitter account, you're only preaching to your choir. You're preaching to those who are already paying attention to you and may have followed you on Twitter or liked your page on Facebook because they already know your business. And that's a great place to start. But you have to reach out to other audiences as well. And that's why, for me, blogger outreach and blogger relations has become an important tool in my arsenal, is that, when I'm trying to expand brand awareness for a brand, preaching to our Facebook page, to that client's Facebook page, isn't going to grow the brand awareness. Now, it might help drive repeat sales, but if I can go out to some bloggers and do guest posts or get them featured on that blog, then that introduces a whole new audience to the client. And, as a business owner, you can do that too. Find bloggers who are writing about your industry or who are speaking to your target audience, speaking to your market, and say, hey, could I write a guest post for you? Could I, share some of your articles around, and maybe you could give me an opportunity to talk about my company on your blog. There's an art to it, but it's a great way to introduce new audiences to your company or your brand.
So it seems to sound a lot like what all business owners hear in terms of network, relationship. And we hear it a lot offline. And what you're talking about is kind of taking that online as well and develop those connections and relationships and then use that to share what you have of value. We talk a lot about the value that you bring in your services, you bring in your product, and that's what customers are buying. And so taking that into the online world and leveraging that in opportunities to get your business recognized. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
That's definitely part of it. And if I can make the shameless plug here, this is where a lot of businesses
make it away.
Well, we understand the concept, right? We understand that we should go out and network, that we should build relationships with others, and that we should make ourselves valuable to them. But it's the how do I do that? That's the hard part. How do I go introduce myself to a stranger? How do I politely and courteously suggest to a blogger that they provide me some free publicity? Well, it's tricky. I mean, there's a little bit of an art to it, and as you gain experience, you'll get more comfortable and you'll know the right way to find that balance. But in the beginning, it's tough, and I think a lot of businesses they err too much on the side of pitching themselves, of selling themselves, and they can turn off an audience that might otherwise help promote you. And that's where companies go wrong in social media, is they do get too aggressive in the self-promotion. So maybe in the beginning it does help to bring in somebody who can help you understand the nuance, maybe help guide or coach you, give you some pointers the right way to do this stuff. And, before long you'll be able to take the training wheels off and run with it on your own.
Now, obviously it sounds like you've got your services worked out, your pricing worked out, and the engagements you're doing with the customers, as you're telling us right now, really how you help them grow their business, grow their brand awareness. But we know all business owners at some point in time are going to run into that customer that is like the problem child that just gives us all the issues. We like to always find out, do you have any kind of horror stories of, you don't have to name the client, we don't want to name any names, but of a horror story of a client that you dealt with and how you made it through that as a business owner and kept your business and everything, because always we're trying to really leave the relationship as well as we found it. But tell us a little bit about if you have any stories like that.
Sure. Well, you always have to know when to fish and cut bait. But, I think my God, you had to stump me on this one, didn't you?
I try to find one of them.
I think my biggest frustration is with the client who has brought you on board to perform one particular service and maybe doesn't know that you can help them in other areas as well. And you try to bring that to their attention, and they start to be a little bit receptive to the message because you've proven yourself early on with some basics. But then they just don't bite on those additional services. And I'll give you a good example. I have a client who manufactures some apparel, and helping them with some social media, got their presence started. They've got a decent presence in social media right now, and we've talked to them about, hey, you guys should be using email as well. You're attracting a lot of inbound leads now. You're doing advertising in addition to your social media efforts, but as those leads come in, how are you harvesting those leads, building relationships with those people, understanding them better, creating content tailored to their unique needs? And uh, they're on board in principle. They like the concept, but like everything else, budgets are tight, time is limited, and they just haven't gone down that road yet. So it's frustrating, and I kind of feel like if we would go down that road, it would make the other things we're doing even more effective. The best you can do is give them the advice. If they're not able to take it for whatever reason, we understand that, but just keep pushing.
So it's in the end still offering as much value as you can offer in the context of the engagement they've actually signed you up for, even though and that's got to be a struggle for a lot of us business owners, especially those of us that are service based, is you can do so much more than they've contracted you for, and you want to do so much more to help them, but they're either in a position or just not willing to accept that extra help.
Sure. Yeah, and the flip side of it is, if you're really good at solving problems for them, they're going to come to you and ask you to solve a problem that you're really not equipped to solve. And this is true whether you're a marketing consultant or a lawyer or a chef. Somebody's going to come along and say, hey, I've always counted on you to do this for me. Can you help me with that? And you're going to have to say, well, that's not really what I do.
Well,
But
now I'm going to make you dig into that. I'm going to make you dig
right,
into that. So how do you handle that situation, or how have you handled that situation?
right. Well, so what's the right answer, right? I mean, I could tell you that's not what I do, and now I'm not solving your problem, or I'm driving you away when maybe I'm leaving a revenue opportunity on the table. So you have to look and say, all right, I might not be the answer that the client is looking for, but do I know who is? Or can I help in some other way? How can I continue to be a problem solver? And again, this is true whether you're in marketing, plumbing, whatever it is. Who else in my network? How can I tap into my community, tap into my knowledge, my resources, my network, and find somebody else and be a problem solver for this client and this customer? Hey, those are rewarding opportunities. Uh, those are the client relationships that last a long time. And luckily, I've had a lot of those opportunities.
And in a way, it sounds like it plays back into what you talked about, sort of the karma strategy, if we can call it that. I don't know if it has an official name, but in a way, it's still that helping them when you can't really helping them, and it may come back around. I know you're not doing it to expect it to come back around, but it may be when they get that problem solved because you directed them to the right person, and then they need help again. They think of you because of the knowledge you brought, the expertise you brought, and the network you brought, the people that that may be able to help you.
Right. Well, and the thing to keep in mind too is that this approach, this strategy is tough because it's not always a direct strategy. It's not an A to B. If I do this today, then tomorrow I will get that strategy. You have to combine it with sales strategy as well, which means if you build up goodwill with your audience, at some point you have to ask for the business. If you don't ask for the business, you're never going to hear yes. You can't sit around and wait for people to come to you and say, "Hey, may I cut you a check for something?"
Yeah.
You have to ask for their business.
Yeah. Okay. Now, because I'm hearing all this, and you sound like a guy who's good problem solver, deals with the challenges, gets them solved and moved on. So tell us, what's your biggest challenge today in your business, and how are you going about trying to tackle that?
For me, it's growth. Um, I'm at a point where I've gone past my ability to be a one-man shop, and now I have to grow and be a CEO. I have to not just be a consultant, but be a business owner, a boss. Um, where's that? How do I handle that tipping point as I go from I'm making enough money now to cover my own needs, but I can't continue to grow and do all the work myself. So how do I grow in such a way that um, that I can bring on somebody else to do the work? Do I have to cut some of my own income in order to make that happen? Do I have to go out and land 5 more accounts to be able to pull in enough revenue to justify hiring somebody? Do I outsource? Can I hire somebody part-time? These are things I'm wrestling with, and it's how do I continue to provide the same level of high quality service to clients and grow my business, but not shrink my income? Ugh, guys, growing pains stuff, man, and everything that comes with that. I have tax questions now. If I cut a check to a contractor, now I've got a tax question, which means now I have to go pay my accountant some money to help answer that question. And now all of those additional expenses that come with that eat into the profit of taking on that additional client. So, um, that's where I could use help. That's where I need a mentor or somebody who's been down that road or somebody who's got expertise in that field.
Now, and that kind of leans into, and you're now the third entrepreneur who's essentially left that as the answer for us in terms of biggest challenge. Is we get to this point where, in a way, you start in 2009. So at this point, close to 3 years in business. You've been doing it since 2006 with a blog. So even longer, 5, 6 years at that standpoint. It's like we get out of the honeymoon startup phase, and now we're in the growth stage, and we have to deal with all these new things we didn't really think about. So far, all of our entrepreneurs been one person shops, and now they're dealing with the growth and how do I scale to that growth. So for you, what you're describing right now is you see the next level and the challenges that you're going to have to face in that next level, and you're asking the questions and getting the answers of how to solve those questions. So it's not because something we get asked a lot is, how do I find out the information that I need to know for each stage of my business? And for you, it sounds like you're taking on yourself and reaching out through your network in order to find those answers.
Well, exactly. You said just what I was going to say, which is go back to your network. The same group of people who you've helped every opportunity you could get, even when it wasn't money coming into your pocket, even when it wasn't a new sale, you've been helping them all along. So now in your moment of need, turn back to them and say, guys, what should I do? I need help. I need advice. I need recommendations. And this to me is one of the great underused functions of social media is that, when businesses jump into social media, their very first thing they're thinking about is how do I use this to advertise myself? How do I use this to market myself, attract more business? You're missing it. Turn it back around and say, we're going through this growth struggle. We need help with this tax question. We have this legal issue. Does anybody know anybody who could help us? Now you've turned around and expressed a need to your community, and guess what? Your community is going to be thrilled at the opportunity to make a recommendation to you, and it's going to deepen a relationship. So I'll turn around and put it out on Twitter. Hey, guys, my computer's dying. I need a new laptop. What do you recommend? And instantly, I've got all those people who I've maybe helped somewhere along the way, and even some who I haven't helped, who come in with recommendations and give me ideas on where to buy it for cheap, how to save money, how to avoid spending money I don't need. So, your network is more valuable to you than just as customers. Think of them as people who can help your business in a lot of different ways.
Fantastic. That's great advice. And as a matter of fact, I think you answered the question that we tend to like to end our interviews with. So let me know if you've got something else, because typically we like to know what is the one piece of advice that you would give to other entrepreneurs thinking about starting their business. And maybe you just answered it with that whole reply right there about building your network and leveraging your network. But if you got something else, give it to us.
Yeah, I've got one, and I'm going to borrow this one from Chris Brogan, who's a kind of a pioneer in our industry. Fail faster. Fail faster. I started by telling you that I didn't come into this business with the intent to start a business. I didn't start with a business plan. And now I'm finding myself needing to do some business planning. But I'm so grateful that I didn't come in with a business plan because it gave me the opportunity to experiment and to try things. And if something didn't work out, okay, fine. Scrap it after a couple of weeks if I have to. Try something different. Fail faster. Don't get into that whole analysis paralysis thing. You see an opportunity? Okay, go after it. Try it. But don't spend 2 months trying to come up with the perfect plan. Just get out there, throw your marker out there, and improve as you go along.
That's fantastic, right? That's great advice. As a matter of fact, and Scott doesn't know this, I don't think, but the tagline for becoming a business owner is stop dreaming, start building. And I think it connects exactly with what you're saying here of you can't have that fear of failure. You can't have that fear that you don't know how to do it. Just get out there and try it. And if you fall on your face, sounds like you're saying get right back up and try another way.
Yeah. Just get out there, put a marker out there, and if it's not 100% perfect, it gives you something you can build on.
Fantastic. Well, Scott, we thank you for being on the show. It's been some wonderful advice, great insights to marketing for business as well, which is great because this is what your business does. So I want to give you a chance now to say if anyone wants to know how they can find out more about you yourself or about media merging your business, where can they go to get some of this information?
Well, I tell you what, you can go to my website, which is mediaemerging.com, or you can find me on Twitter at Scott Hepburn. But here's what I want you to do. Go to LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. You could just do a search there, and you search for Scott Hepburn, you'll find me. Send me a LinkedIn connection request and include a little note, 3 sentences about what you do and what you're trying to accomplish with your business. That way, I know about you, and even if it's not something I can help you with, I can point you to somebody who can.
All right, we've been tasked, we've been challenged. So now hopefully we got some people doing that. Now, by the way, I'm already connected to Scott, so I'm ahead of the game for everyone else. He knows what I do. So that's all for the rest of you to connect to Scott. Look him up on LinkedIn, get connected. As he said, give us some hints of what your business is, what you want to do. And Scott, we're going to expect you in a way to report back what you've done. If you get engaged with some of our viewers, we'd love to follow you guys and see how something may have worked out, because love the advice you've given about building your network, leveraging your network, really growing, trying everything. If you fall, fail, get back up. Thank you for being on the show, and we look forward to the next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me in.